First buck. A woman from the Artemis stalking group goes out after a roe in the Scottish borders.
Oh, Dave, my heart's racing.
Woke watch. The government has banned its own Forestry England from using lead bullets on squirrels. That means they're out with 223s. We try out a test batch of their small grain copper rounds on foxes, and the results ain't pretty.
Bang, whack, thud, night, night. Sort of not running, yeah.
We have a terrifying story of a granny gundog trainer tackled by armed police for using a dummy launcher. You'll have to see it to believe it. Back in the more sedate world of plinking, Terry Doe has not frightened away his latest pupil with his teaching methods. James Marchington is back at the Airgun Academy. Meredyth is on the Fieldsports news stump because David has gone to China. Yes, really. We have a year's supply of dog food to raffle, and James brings you the latest YouTube hunting films in this week's Hunting YouTube. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain.
Well, I'm hoping to bag a roebuck, but we'll see. If I'm lucky enough, we'll see. I'm trying to contain my excitement.
It's a big day for Deborah Pritchard. Coming from a family of taxidermists and married to a shooter, she has always been interested in stalking. But so far, she has only shot paper targets on a range. She has come to this spot near Kelso in the Scottish borders for a day organised by women's stalking group Artemis, set up by two stalking enthusiasts, Kate Langston and Heather Taylor.
It's very difficult, I think, to get into deer stalking anyway, if you don't come from a background where, i.e. your partner or somebody you know shoots anyway. And through our own struggles of getting into deer stalking and realising that it was difficult anyway, but it's even more difficult as a lady because people don't seem to realise that you've got to go probably into the middle of nowhere to meet somebody you've possibly not met before, who's got a knife and a rifle. And so we decided that it was something that maybe we could do and help ladies. We can recommend people from our own experiences. And it's kind of snowballed a bit from that, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we noticed that there was a real lack in confidence of women sort of stepping forward and getting themselves into the sport without any sort of support. So what we wanted to do by forming the group was give them a way of entering the sport, giving them opportunities for training so that they can gain confidence, and we can give them opportunities to really get involved with a female support network that they can draw from.
Dave Pullen is hosting the day. He has thoughtfully provided on-site catering and shelter from the inevitable Scottish rain.
This is our first day on range and on simulated stalking, and obviously for the ladies for Artemis. My partner Dawn, she's a big part of Artemis deer stalking, and I think it's gone really well.
After practice on the deer and fox targets, the participants try a simulated stalk through the woods. There's also a talk from Louise Farmer, who works for Nature Scot, promoting best practice in wildlife management.
It's a requirement in Scotland in some circumstances to follow best practice guidance if you're carrying out a certain activity. That's not necessarily the case in England and Wales. It's a huge suite of guidance. There's over 90 different pieces of guidance available. They're free to read on the internet, they're free to save as a PDF and to print off. It's a resource that enables you to continue carrying out your management activities, but to a slightly higher standard, ensuring that animal welfare is achieved, ensuring that human safety is achieved, and ensuring that we as a sector ensure that we self-regulate and are keen to continue improving with our standards.
At the end of the session, Deborah wins first place for her safety and marksmanship.
I don't know how, but...
As far as Dave is concerned, she has proved she is ready to try for her first roebuck. He wastes no time setting off to find a suitable cull animal. The thermal reveals a buck in the undergrowth at the top end of this barley field. We stalk in and wait in lashing rain, but this beast isn't going to play ball. Plan B, we move on and try another area. The hot spots in the thermal turn out to be does. Perhaps there's a buck laid up in the long grass. Dave's barking fails to get a response. With time running short, Dave has one last trick up his sleeve. We park the truck for the third time for a final attempt. And we're in luck. This is a perfect cull buck in this grass field. It's seen us. There's no time to lose.
Bah! Ah! Go on. Front shoulder. Oh, yes!
I dropped that. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to have a black eye with that one.
Well done.
Oh, Dave, my heart's racing. Oh, bless him.
That's your first roebuck. I love doing what I do. Obviously, you know, I've shot quite a few deer. You know, I've been stalking for 25 years and I've shot a lot of deer, but I love taking people out to get the first deer, whether they're experienced or inexperienced. It's just great to put deer in front of people, you know, and especially to see the faces once they've actually made the kill, a good nice kill, you know. And it's fantastic. I just love it. I just love what I do. I love what I do.
Incredible day. I have no words. I'm just absolutely dumbstruck at the moment. Yeah, chuffed to bits. Incredible experience. I would fiercely recommend it to anybody that wants to start stalking, and any women that out there that, you know, really are unsure of how to start. Contact Kate and Heather because they're just incredible.
You can find Artemis deer stalking on Instagram or Facebook. Links below. Thank you all who took part in that. Now, what's in this week's Fieldsports Extra? A curlew straight out of a news story, a boy in a boat, and a baffled squirrel shooter.
Yeah, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Plus, prize this week is one of 5 pairs of tickets to the Game Fair on the 26th to the 28th of July at Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire, and there's a link to that below. Become a Fieldsports member now with insurance, and you get Fieldsports Extra every week on Tuesdays, the night before this show. Watch Fieldsports Extra and you can find out how to enter our competitions. Link to that below. Next up, such grace, such delicacy. No, it's not David, it's Meredyth on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
You are watching Fieldsports Channel News. A curlew, which became a social media celebrity as part of the Real Springwatch social TV series, has lost its brood of chicks after a fox ate them live on camera. This footage, taken from the Peak District Moorlands group, shows how the fox takes its chance when the adult bird is off the nest. The fox is clearly seen munching the curlew chicks on footage captured from trail cameras streamed on social media. The Peak District Moorland group runs its Real Springwatch initiative at the same time as the BBC runs its version. It's designed to show people the realities of life in the countryside. Here's Richard Bailey to explain.
We were looking forward to chicks being hatched, you know, which they eventually did hatch, but then as you know, the nighttime adventures and recordings unfurled, it wasn't to be. And a fox, which is what happens to a lot of these ground nesting birds, if you don't have predator control, you know, it developed into, you know, a scene where the chicks were taken.
You can see more on that story by clicking the link below. Countryside organisations are anxiously awaiting the chance to meet new DEFRA Secretary Steve Reid as the Labour government takes charge of Westminster. Both Basque and the Countryside Alliance have put in requests to meet with Reid, who is MP for Streatham and North Croydon. So what can they expect from Labour's man who is responsible for all things rural? His voting record, which you can see by clicking on the link below, shows he's passionate about animal welfare. Basque says that in informal conversations with the new minister when he was in opposition, he expressed wholehearted support for hunting and shooting. Here's what the Countryside Alliance has to say.
The new DEFRA team will undoubtedly have a huge amount to be getting on with, and the Countryside Alliance stands willing and ready to work with this new team with Steve Reid at the helm. We've already met Steve Reid and Daniel Zeichner, who are now in positions of real power, people that we are going to have a huge impact on decisions taken that affect rural communities. And the Alliance will, where necessary, be a critical voice, as we always have been to every government.
The British Shooting Show will be at the NEC for the next 3 years at least. More than 20,000 people visited this year's show, and the 2025 event will take place from the 14th to the 16th of February. Dates for the show in 2026 and 27 will follow. There's a link below to book tickets for next year. There's optimism among grouse shooters in Scotland following last week's announcement about the new licensing for grouse moor management. That's the view of the Countryside Alliance, which believes the new system is more streamlined and less open to potential abuse from spurious claims of mismanagement of moorlands and birds than feared first.
When a licence is issued, it is issued to a landowner or occupier, and it can be suspended or revoked if an offence is suspected under specific legislation such as the Wildlife and Countryside Act. Three things have to be satisfied. There has to be a relevant offence, which could be under one of the acts, whether it's under the Dogs Act or the Wildlife Countryside Act. It has to be committed or suspected to have been committed on the ground that the licence relates to, and by someone who is directly involved with the management of that land. And again, the good news about this is that we do have the right to an appeal in Sheriff's Court.
Norway's government has announced that 16 of the 33 rivers closed to salmon fishing will be allowed to reopen with limits to protect fish stocks. It introduced measures to limit fishing times and also restrict anglers from taking fish in the south of Norway. Two of Norway's most famous salmon rivers, the Gaula and the Orkla, remain closed. Government scientists studied fish counts before making the announcements after pressure from Norway's tourist industry. Thanks to Per Holmsmith for that story. King Charles is flying in the face of family tradition by turning down a patronage for racing pigeons. His mother, the late Queen, plus grandfathers and great-grandfathers before her, all supported Britain's pigeon fanciers. Now the King has dropped his support and animal activists are claiming a victory. Aunties describe pigeon racing as a blood sport. The royal family has owned carrier pigeons since 1886, when King Leopold of Belgium gave some to Queen Victoria. The late Queen Elizabeth owned 200 of them, housed at Sandringham. Basque says that 2,600 school children came to its annual 5-day Let's Learn More event to discover how upland moors are conserved and managed. Children from 75 schools across the north of England saw demonstrations of moorland management techniques, met gamekeepers and farmers, and heard how emergency services deal with accidental fires on moorland. The initiative has been running since 2017, with more than 12,500 children enjoying the annual trips to the countryside in the past 7 years. Fishing clubs are now so concerned about sewage being dumped into Britain's rivers that they are now issuing guidance to their anglers about how to avoid disease. Never mind being able to tell a roach from a dace, the Angling Trust has published guidance to help anglers recognise the symptoms of E. coli, hepatitis and salmonella. It says that anyone coming into contact with UK river water should regularly disinfect their hands, avoid putting fishing line in their mouth to bite knots, and cover any pre-existing cuts with a waterproof plaster. A recent survey of Britain's rivers revealed 200 of them contained pollution that could pose a serious risk to human health. A stag's head making its way from Scotland to New Zealand has gone missing after a burglary. The head, known as George, was stolen from a house near Wellington in New Zealand. This picture shows George posing with his best friend Tom just before the theft. He's been part of the Galway family for a decade and is believed to be more than 100 years old. The family has appealed on social media for his return, along with 2 flat-screen TVs, and blames the theft on an opportunist little rat bag. And finally, a new video shows how potentially useless protective fences are for deterring determined predators. This clip of a badger with ninja-like climbing skills shows it scaling a high fence and climbing down the other side to get to its prey. The Campaign for the Protection of Moorland Communities released the film. It warns the RSPB and other conservation industry organisations that fences won't keep out a hungry badger. The bird charity recently announced it had lost an entire avocet colony at its famous Burton Mere wetland. It's the 3rd year it's happened, despite huge financial investment in fencing. The RSPB blames plucky and persistent badgers. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, Meredyth. And David has sent me a message from China to ask you to like and subscribe under our films. Thank you. Now, we have a fundraising raffle. As you know, Fieldsports membership supports our news reporting, for which our lovely advertisers do not pay. To help with that, we're running another raffle on the Givergy website. You can win a year's supply of dog food from Hoddies, producer of premium, sustainable and wild British game dog food, priced at more than £700. Yes, that's how much we spent on our dogs. One lucky winner will receive a dozen 12-kilogram bags of Hoddies Premium Wild British Pheasant or Wild British Venison dog food, or choose a mixture of the two. That's one bag of dog food per month for a year. It's £5 a ticket and we're selling 400 of them. Link to it below and a QR code on screen. Now, Warwickshire gundog trainer went out with her dummy launcher last week. What happened next is horrifying. Andy Ford reports.
The screams and pleas for help are coming from Helen Cadman. It's 8 AM on a Sunday morning and she's just been put in an arm lock by armed police. She thinks they smashed the electric gates to her Warwickshire home on the way in and are subjecting her to a terrifying ordeal. Her crime? Training her Labradors in her paddock using a dummy launcher.
I came across the lawn, and as I came past the block of kennels, you can see my gates from the block of kennels, and the gates were open. I couldn't understand why they were open. And then all of a sudden, the dogs just ran across to the driveway and started running up the drive. And obviously my instant decision was, oh my God, they're going to get out the gate, they're going to get on the road. So as I turned round, there was two men completely dressed in black. They had face masks on. I could only see their eyes. They'd got rifles, they got guns, and they were pointing them at me. And I thought, oh my God, this is a burglary, it's an armed burglary. I don't know. And I didn't know what to do. I still wouldn't know what to do if it happened again. And I just froze. The dogs were everywhere. I just didn't know what to do.
While the sound captured from her farm security system is hard to understand clearly, an armed police officer can be heard shouting at her to calm down. You can see Helen here, still in her nightdress. An officer holding an automatic is just out of the picture on the left of your screen. The police say a 999 call alerted them to 10 gunshots being fired. They tell Helen they're also investigating someone being shot. Helen has done nothing wrong. She doesn't even own a firearm, just a standard dummy launcher which uses .22 blanks to fire a canvas dummy in the air for a gundog to retrieve.
The one that was approaching me, as he got closer to me, I saw he'd got a radio, and I saw he didn't have shiny buttons, but he didn't have his numbers on him to recognise him as a police officer. I'd walked a few steps, it wasn't that many steps, and he came up and dragged me back, and he got hold of me, and he grabbed my arm and was pulling me and pulling me and pulling me. And I told him, no, you know, and he was saying, get your dogs in, get your dogs in. And I thought, oh, I'm going to the caravan to get the dogs in. And I said, I'm trying to go and you're stopping me. You're stopping me from going to get my dogs in. And the more he was shouting, get your dogs in, that his eyes were going wilder and wilder. He was not in control. And I was absolutely scared. Sorry. I just wanted to get my dog safe. So he was grabbing me, and then as he grabbed me, he pulled me back and further back away from the caravan. And as we got back, he turned, and then he was pushing me and pushing me back, and he'd got my arm, and it was twisted in such a way that I was starting to hit the floor.
It seems the root of the incident is a malicious phone call from someone with an axe to grind. Helen and her husband Mark are at the centre of it. Her granddaughter Astin is watching through a window as the officers eventually realise it's a mistake. Mark tries to tell the lead officer to calm down.
Calm down. Right, there is no need to be stressed. I'm not. You are. I'm trying to tell you, we are here.
He explained then, because I said, what's going on? He said that somebody had made a 999 call, said that 10 rounds had been discharged and a person had been shot, and that they were there to save me. And I said, well, if you're trying to save me and the way that you're behaving, you're really not saving me.
Since this happened, Helen admits she's been struggling. Physically, she suffered some minor injuries, including whiplash. She believes that happened when she was pulled across the compound by one of the officers as he was demanding she got her dogs under control. One of the dogs, in panic mode, also bit her on the leg. There's also damage to the electric front gates of the small holding, which she and Mark have been told will cost £8,500 to repair. It's the mental scars she says have caused her the most damage though, with the torment causing her sleepless nights.
It's when I think about it, I haven't slept for 2 nights because the gates can't be locked. We've had the gate man here, it's £8,500 just to get the gates fixed. But he can't come till next week. So I'm having to, the kennels are outside. I need to know that my dogs are safe. The doctor, I went to the doctor yesterday. She turned around and said, like, you're going through trauma. She's given me some very light sedatives because I said I don't want to be knocked out. I don't want anything like that. She went and checked my arm and my neck, and she said I've got whiplash. So that's all. Thank you very much to the people who're supposed to save me, that were standing there telling me they're saving me. From what?
Helen received a verbal apology from one of the officers at the scene. A female superintendent contacted her to offer a home visit. She's now taking legal advice and is planning a formal complaint. Warwickshire Police has asked its firearms inspector to review the incident after Fieldsports News contacted the force. We'll let you know what they have to say.
What a terrible thing to happen. It shows the importance of CCTV and filming on your phone. Whether you're attacked by animal rights extremists or the police, make sure you get the images. Now, you may have noticed that, Labour or Tory, the UK government is unremittingly urban in its outlook. Perhaps that's why they make so many mistakes. Here's the latest one. Forestry England started its journey to non-toxic ammunition in September 2016 for its staff to use to manage deer and wild boar. From April 2024, all firearms used in the nation's owned forests must use non-toxic ammunition, and that includes for small pests. The government-owned forestry owner prioritises trapping and cranial concussion for grey squirrel control, though it says that its FAC air rifles and shotguns that could be used for grey squirrels both use non-toxic ammunition. It is also looking at copper centrefire bullets for vermin. We're calling this out in what we reckon is going to be a regular series. Woke Watch, Week 1. What forestry would like to do is to use these, or the copper version of these, this is a lead one, instead of these. These are extremely expensive and they travel a very long way. These do the same job, but they're made of lead, and so they're extremely dangerous for the environment. Oops. He doesn't work for Forestry England, which puts Tom Davis of Dartmoor Deer Services in a good place to test new 223 copper rounds for an ammo company that's keen to supply Forestry England. At 45 grains, no doubt they would kill a squirrel. Tom's job is to try them out on foxes. First up, Tom tests them for accuracy.
This is our target. The calibre we're using this evening, I haven't seen many non-toxic bullets in that calibre, which is 223. So a fairly small centre fire, and so we can get some group in and see if we can trying on some foxes, which I think is going to be interesting. We won't see a fox tonight, but we'll try. I'd be happy with that, definitely. Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. They look good. I'm not even going to bother touching it. That's bang on. So I haven't adjusted the scope at all, so yeah, I'm happy with that. And that's pretty much how my 55 grain lead bullets are zeroed, so that's pretty much the same.
First fox is in a field of sheep. Tom calls it to get its attention. Then he heads off to shoot it and its friend.
I just spotted 2 foxes down the bottom of this valley. The first one I headshot, and then this one ran up to my right, followed it round. It was trying to go through the fence, so it was stood like facing away from me and quartering slightly. So I just, it was very twitchy, so I just went for the chest shot on it, which I was looking for reactions anyway with these new bullets. And yeah, it actually ran. Yeah, about 50 yards. Yeah, you can see it was a good, clean heart shot. It did pencil through. Yeah, obviously, as I say, I've only done it once, so I can't really go on it from that. But that was my worry with copper bullets. Bang, whack, thud. Night, night. Sort of not running, yeah.
Next fox is in a nearby field. Tom races to get into position.
There's a big fox and it's mush. That's a bit more promising. Third fox of the evening, went for just a normal headshot, and basically what the bullet's done is exactly what I would like to see on any other bullet, to be honest. It's done all the damage required from every bullet.
He shoots 3 more. Back at the yard, he talks through what happened.
I shot 6 foxes this evening. 3 have been a headshot. And then we wanted to try different shot placements. So out of the others, I've done 1 neck, 2 chest. The neck didn't drop on the spot, it threw itself into the hedge. The 2 chests ran. So one spoke about earlier, that one went about, say 50 yards. But the second one, that one went a long way. It was a good 100 yards. I mean, our main key when we're out doing this job is humanely killing animals. It's not nice for us to see that when you've got other kit out there which will be a bit more aggressive, say, to get a humane kill. Headshots were spot on. You wouldn't know if I'd shot that with VMAX or the copper. They'd done the job. Whether because there's more bone there, slightly, there's a lot more for the bullet to hit, so it done that bit of expansion. Don't know, a bit more pressure with the bullet hitting there. Accuracy, we couldn't fault it. When I done that group earlier, they're all touching each other, and that was through, not there's anything wrong with digital scope, but that's through a digital scope. For a normal day scope, you could probably improve that a lot more. I know a lot of people out there are going to say, I shoot deer and they work, but I've just witnessed something firsthand and it wasn't pretty. So, yeah.
The fact remains that in this case, these lightweight 223 rounds designed for small vermin are no good for foxes. We're saying woke watch in this case because, in common with all of us who shoot, Forestry England knows what ammunition kills squirrels. It knows what kills foxes. There's a spirit of inquiry about testing 45 grain 223 copper rounds on foxes, but at what cost to fox welfare? Thanks, Tom. We have a new episode of Farming Britain out, and it's a slice of Wimbledon with a spin. There's Strawberry X Factor. What does it take to make it big on the supermarket shelf, and what gets jammed? Then there's the raw milk dairy farmer who is fighting to keep his products on the shelf. Link is in the description below. Next, James Marchington is back at Terry Doe's Airgun Academy.
James,
yes,
welcome back to Old Dog's New Tricks, and I think we did all right in the first one.
Yeah.
We did okay.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to interview you. How often and for how long does it take you to adjust the trigger on your main hunting air rifle? I know the answer to this, James, so don't tell me any fibs. I bet it doesn't take long, does it?
I've had that air rifle for about 10 plus years.
10 plus years?
I have never adjusted.
Never, no.
I wouldn't know where to start.
No.
And I'll be scared.
Right, okay, well let's get rid of one thing. You being scared.
Fiddle with it.
You being scared.
Yep.
You operate visual and sound machinery and electronics and computers that are about 1 million times more complex than a trigger unit, an adjustable trigger unit, which is built for shooters to adjust. Okay, and shooters not of your intelligence and mechanical ability. So there's nothing to be afraid of. So we're going to do that.
Okay.
I've studied the films. I've studied your technique. And
you've got an opinion.
you laughed, I didn't. You laughed. Right. You use an air rifle trigger like you use a shotgun and a full bore trigger. Okay.
Well, I shouldn't use the full bore trigger like that, to be fair.
No.
But I do have this.
You do tend to have a robust approach.
You see, somewhere in the back of my mind thinks it's like those guns you had when you were a kid, you know, that fired the little balls.
Yeah, yeah.
The harder you pull the trigger, the faster the bullet goes.
I can only remember that. They're called Sekiden.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, how did I remember that? I forget my phone number 3 times a week. We can reevaluate the air rifle. This air rifle is a precision delivery system for comparatively, certainly compared to shotgun and full bore and even rimfire, low energy.
Yep.
Okay, so, and it's also under tremendous influence, even within the modern rifles of today. It's not an instantaneous act to touch that trigger, to let it slip, and the rifle and the pellet be beyond your influence. So we're talking about actually composing proper follow through, and that does start with having the trigger set dead right. Now, too many people believe that a light trigger is the right trigger, and it isn't. Certainly not in the hunting field, because it's not always a lovely sort of balmy day like today. Sometimes it's freezing, your fingers are like sausages, and unless you want to keep adjusting the trigger, which I'm certain you don't, we need to set it to be at the lightest, safe and practical setting, not the lightest setting. All good units, especially something like this RTI, will go down to match settings almost, which we don't want in the hunting field. We want something practical. That it's going to take knocks and bumps. Your fingers are going to touch it. Your safety training will come in so that it's not pointing where it shouldn't. But if we adjust your trigger, if you take time out, adjust your trigger, and get it absolutely right, even if it returns to the setting it was at before, it means you're using a trigger with the right setting. Just as a general tip, if when you're squeezing that shot off, if there is any movement whatsoever, or you even have to think, oh, I better pull that a bit harder, if that is a conscious movement, then it's too hard. It's within the safety parameters.
Okay.
So it's almost a subconscious thing. When you've decided to slip the shot, you increase the pressure on the second stage, and it trips.
Right.
And that, I promise you, you'll get great benefit from it. So the next time we meet, I'll be saying, James, how did you get on with adjusting that trigger?
You'll be catching me out, if I haven't done it. Right. So how do you go about adjusting the trigger on?
It's so simple. It is so simple. The instructions are supplied. There's a million YouTube videos. Have you heard of YouTube at all, James?
I have heard it.
I've seen one or two. It's all on there.
Obviously, I've had my gun a year or two.
Yeah.
So I don't think I could find the instruction booklet anymore.
There will be a YouTube video on there. It's so simple though. It's more or less self-explanatory. It's a couple of turns.
Turning a screw.
You're basically turning a screw. You'll adjust the length of travel of the first stage of the blade and the let off. But again, I can't emphasise this too strongly. Adjust it for. Imagine your days in the winter field as well. And I would be very surprised if you don't lighten it a tad, according to what I've seen.
Yeah.
All right. So there's your project.
Yeah.
And never forget, everything you've put into your shot, all your stalking with an air rifle, all your baiting setup, the lovely scope you've bought, everything else, that can be ruined. Everything can be devalued totally just by not having the trigger adjusted properly.
I'm getting the idea that I need to adjust my mindset when I pick up the air rifle.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Okay, today I'm not shooting a cronky old 12 bore that's going to need a wrench on the trigger. This is a precision instrument, and I need to treat it like one.
And have faith that if they're as good as this one, and most, there are some really good ones about, it will already outperform you, so you don't have to worry, and me and everybody else. You don't have to worry about that. Just don't let it down.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is technique and proper settings.
Yeah.
Thanks, James and Terry. Next up, from kit to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube. Brought to you by James Marchington, it's Hunting YouTube.
This is Hunting YouTube, with James to show the latest and best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. Here's what I picked for you this week. First, Keith Warren is in Texas hunting feral pigs with a spear. Turns out it's harder than it looks, and his first couple of throws are clean misses, but fortunately he's brought a rifle as backup. Here's another American hunter making things hard for himself. Tim Wells is flighting ducks, not with a shotgun but with a bow. It's interesting to see the amount of lead needed compared to a gun. Staying in the States, Mountain Sport Airguns is out with his dog and multi-pump airgun, stalking rabbits in thick brush. He finds it hard to sneak up close enough, but eventually manages to put a couple in the bag. Back in the UK, and Wayne Martin's after rabbits, not with his usual catapult, but with his dad's Varrock HW100 air rifle. The rain clears up, and it turns out he's a pretty good shot with an airgun too. More airgun hunting from the sub-MOA channel. He's using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, shooting rats around the cattle sheds with a 28 foot-pound Webley Patriot in .25 caliber. Chris Dalton from South Ayrshire Stalking has launched his own shooting show with stalking outings interspersed with some chat about kit. This is episode 2, which includes a session on freshly cut silage fields looking for foxes and a rundown of the ubiquitous butterlow call. More roe stalking, this one unexpectedly from Nature Scott. It explains the need to manage deer in urban areas and looks at the challenges of night shooting on a golf course in Glasgow, not least the chance of running into wild campers in the woods. Finally this week, here's an interview with Amber Rutter, who's balancing being a new mum with training in preparation for shooting skeet for Great Britain at the Paris 2024 Olympics. That's it for this week. I've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you'd like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, jamesm@fieldsportschannel.tv.
Well, that's it for this week. If you haven't done so already, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about this show. Fieldsports Britain is at 7 p.m. UK time every Wednesday. And this has been Fieldsports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.